Lax Sports Network is proud to present the CAA Game of the Week. Today we're coming to you from Towson, Maryland for an Ivy League versus CAA clash. 11th ranked Cornell making the trip to visit the Towson Tigers. And with that, we welcome you alongside Brendan McDaniels. I'm Travis Eldridge. Brendan, these two teams coming from polar opposite results a week ago. Cornell, a convincing win over UAlbany in their opener, while Towson 0-2 after a disappointing loss to Mount St. Mary's.
Yeah, these teams are completely different, as you mentioned. Cornell first, we'll start with them. Not surprising that they beat Albany. This is a Final Four caliber team led by Jeff Teat. We're going to talk about him in a minute. They've got all the tools to make a run at a national championship. On the other side for Towson, not so surprising that they lost to Johns Hopkins, but we're really surprised that they lost to the Mount. It's a team coming in 0-2, but this is a very good team, but they need to figure it out quickly.
So you mentioned Jeff Teat for Cornell. He's our player to watch, three-time All-American. The key that really gets this offense to go.
He absolutely does. And one of the underrated parts of Jeff Teat's game is his high lacrosse IQ. He's one of the rare guys in college lacrosse that understands the opposing defenders, and he knows how to exploit opposing defenses. He can score. He can dish it off. This is a guy with 3 straight 30-goal, 30-assist seasons. He's one of the top dogs in NCAA lacrosse.
The guy that likely is going to guard him for most of this game, Kobe Smith, a guy who can get up and go in transition as well.
He absolutely can, and this guy is a phenomenal talent. 6 feet, 200 pounds. He always gets the top attackman for the other team, and he wants it too. He won't tell you that he wants it, but he absolutely wants that matchup. He's a big physical defender. He's got great footwork, and as you're watching these highlights, he is excellent in the transition game. That's something that Cornell's going to need to keep an eye on out today, because this guy can shut you down and get out and move the ball into the offensive end.
And we're just about ready for opening face-off here at Johnny Unitas Stadium in Towson, Maryland. We were talking about Kobe Smith, and it's going to be a new guy that Kobe Smith is playing in front of in goal for the Tigers. It's Shane Brennan getting the start for Towson, number 1 in your programs. His first start since the 2018 CAA championship game. He was injured last year, allowed Tyler Canto to come in and get that starting role. Never gave it up last season, but Canto struggled the first couple of games. Brennan a little banged up in this preseason, but now he's healthy, and he gets the start today.
Yeah, we talked to Sean Nadelin last night. He said Brennan was going to be the starter coming into this season had he not got dinged up. So this is not very surprising that he's getting the start today, but it's a crucial start for Towson. They come in 0-2, and they really need to get a win today, and they're putting their former backbone back in the starting lineup.
On the Cornell side of things, it's Chase Erlin, TD's younger brother. He started last year as a freshman for the Big Red, had a goals against average just under 12, a save percentage that was one of the tops in the Ivy League. Gave up just 10 goals last week in the win over UAlbany with a save percentage around 50, and he gets the start for the second straight week.
Yeah, this is a kid that Pete Milliman was recruiting basically since this kid was an 8th grader in Victor. It's a suburb of Rochester in upstate New York, and he said this was one of the toughest competitors he had ever seen. He told us his 8th grade hockey coach said that Chase was one of the toughest guys he had ever coached, and Milliman said, at that point, I knew that I had to make this kid a Big Red, and now he's the second-year starter and a team, as we mentioned just a few moments ago, that has Final Four aspirations. They felt like they underachieved a little bit last year, and they need to improve defense, improve face-off, and they're going to get there.
For the 9th season, Sean Nadelin, the head man on the sidelines for the Tigers. Obviously an 0-2 start so far, but he has been terrific with this Towson program. 5 CAA championship titles, including last year's tournament title. On the other end, for the 3rd season, it's Peter Milliman leading the Big Red. His second as the full-time head coach. His first year, he was still the interim head man in 2018. Previously was the associate head coach for Cornell. At the face-off X, you got Jack McNallen in there. Of course, for Towson, the unenviable task of having to follow up the great Alex Woodall after his stellar career for Towson.
Yeah, you're right. One of the easiest jobs was to be his backup the last couple of years, and now McNallen's in the forefront. Only 6 of 27 so far this season, and that's one of the areas that Towson really needs to improve on if they're going to correct this season.
But it's Paul Rasimovich, the face-off man for Cornell, who wins the opening face-off, and the Big Red will get the first possession this afternoon. Your starters in the midfield, Jonathan Donville, Connor Fletcher, and Cooper Telesco for the Big Red. At attack, you got the freshman Michael Long, joined by John Piattelli and, of course, Jeff T. This is Donville working his way across the top of the box. Got a little bit of an alley, sends it behind. Big Red offense put up 19 goals in that season opening win over UAlbany last week.
See the patience of Teat there, just waiting for the right spot.
You mentioned in the open, just such great lacrosse IQ as we're just under 30 seconds on the shot clock for Cornell, the first possession of this game. Donville draws the slide. It's Zingalia who picks him up. Moved along and now Long. Piattelli shot it gets off. It's a shot clock reset, but the ground ball scooped up by the Tigers.
Yeah, you saw in that possession that Jeff Teat behind the cage, very patient, seeing the entire field. And then we talked about his high lacrosse IQ. He did not have a good lane to pass, so he didn't. He's pinpoint accurate with his passes, and he's not going to make a mistake unless he knows something's there.
Tigers a little trouble with it to get set offensively, but eventually able to get their offensive personnel on. The starting midfield unit, Austin Stewart, Grant Maloof, and James Avanzato. At attack, Brody McLean, John Mazza, who is back after missing a year and a half with this Tigers program, and he's joined by Luke Frommer. That pass errant, though, from Maloof. And just over the sideline, a turnover early for the Tigers. That was something that Coach Sean Nadelin for Towson mentioned to us on our call this week. Cornell, a interesting team, a unique squad defensively, because they're going to get out and pressure you, and you see the early impact of that here.
Right, that's one of the things with Cornell, that they struggled defensively last year, but they're going to come out and press, as you mentioned. They're going to make you work for everything you get. They're not going to give you an easy pass right into the box. And you saw in the very first possession, they forced the turnover. Now they go back on offense.
Tough catch there for J.J. Lombardi, part of the second midfield unit for the Big Red. Moved along to Piattelli. Matt Licciardi also in there as part of the second midfield unit for Cornell. Joined by Billy Coyle, number 11 in red. This is Jeff T. Gets into the middle, kept out by Brennan.
Just an excellent move by Jeff T. He got past Smith, but then Brennan was there to make the save. Yeah, that's going to be a fun matchup to watch all afternoon.
Quickly the other way. This one goes for Luke Frommer. Just like that, Towson strikes first.
That's a big opening goal for the Towson Tigers, as they move the ball quickly up in transition. You saw the first time they really struggled in transition to get the ball up the field, and this time Frommer got right behind the defense as Gavin Adler was kind of sleeping at the wheel a little bit, and Frommer was able to sneak behind him, go one-on-one against Chase Erlin and get the goal.
And if you watch that season opening loss to Hopkins, the one place where Towson did have some success was getting up and going in transition. Kobe Smith, a couple of goals in that one. And that was one of the spark plugs for this offense. I'll be interested to see how much they try to push the envelope here against Cornell.
If they can find some success in transition, that's going to help their game out, as Cornell really wants to make this a 6-on-6 game on both ends.
Fletcher, a big dodge to start this offensive set. Now Piattelli gets out of traffic. Cornell 2 for 2 at the faceoff X so far against McNallen and Towson. Here's T. Now the midfielder, Fletcher, a little sidearm fling. We're knotted up at 1 apiece.
What was interesting on that possession, Gray Bowden got the assignment on Teat, so they switched things up a little bit defensively, and that allowed Teat just a little bit more room to operate. Here's Fletcher one-on-one going down the left side. Just a beautiful play. Take a look at this. Takes that quick step right and then goes left and takes it opposite of the stick of Brennan for the first goal for the Big Red.
Fletcher in no need of much space there as he flung that one to the top corner. And Rasimovic continues his success at the faceoff X. 3 for 3 for Cornell and another possession for the Big Red. And when this Cornell team has possessions, they are incredibly difficult to stop. Fifth in the NCAA a year ago in offense, and they struggled at the faceoff X.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing is that they did not have a ton of possessions last year because of those struggles at the faceoff X, but they're still one of the most potent offenses in the country.
Well, shimmy shake here for Joe Wolf. Somehow gets through the defense, finally loses it. Ball in the crease there of Brennan, and he's able to collect a stop for the Tigers.
Just got into no man's land and took a 1-on-4, which is never going to end well for you. And Towson forces the turnover. When we talk about that Cornell offense from last season, despite the struggles on defense, despite the struggles at the faceoff X, they're still one of the best offenses, and they still return possibly one of the top 5 players in all of college lacrosse.
There was some trouble there coming through the box for Tim Montgomery as he tripped up, but he gets possession in an early timeout here for Towson. Sean Nadelin pauses things. Good time to remind you, LSN CAA Game of the Week slate continues tomorrow. We head up I-95 to Long Island. Hofstra visiting Villanova, coming off a win over Michigan last week. The Pride now 2-0 in the season, while the Cats coming off that big upset win over number 4 Maryland on Tuesday. Face off of this one set for 2 p.m. Eastern time. It's tomorrow here on Lax Sports Network, your home for CAA lacrosse. Should be a good matchup there. Another look at Ryan Tierney coming off that 8-point performance. It was masterful last week against the Wolverines.
Well, you and I were talking about him before this game, and just talk about so many different aspects of his game. Whether he's scoring, passing. You mentioned first half he was scoring. Second half he decided, you know what? I'm going to facilitate the offense now and change things up. But another one of those guys who's just such a special player in the CAA. There's so many good, talented players in this league.
Good timeout for Sean Nadelin. Understanding how important some possessions could be early on here for the Tigers as they have struggled at the faceoff X so far.
You're right. That's the important thing is you want to make sure your team stays confident, stays into it in the first 5 minutes of the game. Taking that timeout was a smart one, although it ends up in a turnover.
Greg I's shot was wide, and then a turnover trying to pass it back into the middle. And Cornell quickly the other way. Something to mention to look out for on this Tigers defense. Jake McLean, the short stick defensive midfielder for the Tigers, out 4 to 6 weeks with an upper body injury. We found out about that just prior to face-off here this afternoon. So no Jake McLean for the Tigers, at least for the foreseeable future. And that is a tough spot to be in against this potent offense that you can use all your main defensive midfielders that you can get. And this is the freshman Brandon Hunn who draws the Teat assignment. Teat beats him, hits the pipe.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that they've had 4 possessions now and 3 different defenders have been out on Teat. So looks like Nadelin's just trying to figure out, let's keep him guessing. Let's not let him get into a comfort zone and get the same guy each time.
The fresh shot clock here for Cornell as the ball hit the pipe. This is Michael Long, the freshman from New Jersey, 5-star recruit for the Big Red. Kicks it out. Now Cooper Telesco. He has it taken away, picked up by the long stick midfielder Mo Silla. And look out for Kobe Smith. Long range shot and a score. John Mazza on the assist from Kobe Smith. Tigers up 2-1.
And we mentioned that at the beginning. You had to keep an eye on Towson and Kobe Smith moving the ball in transition, but you back this up. Take a look defensively. Andrew O'Dare, the junior midi, forces the turnover. Then they get the ball up to Kobe Smith. A great pass by Mo Salah. Kobe Smith dumps it to Mazza, and Mazza with that sidearm rifle for the goal. That's beautiful transitions. That's 2 goals now for Towson in transition.
We mentioned Mazza at the top. He played in 2018, played the first 8 games of that season, was one of the best scorers on this Tigers team. He then was suspended for a violation of team rules. Did not play the rest of the year. Did not play all of last year. But he and Coach Nadalin continued to have conversations. They figured some things out. Mazza realized some of the mistakes he had made. Nadalin said he realized that this was a different person coming back to this squad, and Mazza now rejoins this Tigers squad for one more go at it here in 2020.
And the interesting thing about this, we asked him, we said, what was the most important thing that you guys talked about with Mazza that he corrected? He said, this is not what he was suspended for, but he took care of his business in the classroom. He started becoming a better student. He said that had nothing to do with the suspension, but he said that showed me that he cared and he was involved and wanted to be part of this team because he took care of the important stuff.
And we've seen the impact of him being back in this offense early on. He now leads the team with 6 goals so far in 2+ games. But Cornell, another face-off win to get another early possession, but a high pass there from Wolf. And another turnover for the Big Red.
Yeah, Wolf sailed it over J.J. Lombardi. He said J.J. Lombardi's only 5'7", thought he was 7 feet on that one.
James Avanzado, the transfer from Maryland, part of this first midfield unit for the Tigers, joined by Grant Maloof. He dodges and dishes behind to Mazza. On this long, far wing, it's Austin Stewart. Maloof, nice shimmy shake. But his pass to Stewart just a little off. He couldn't handle it, a turnover. That was a good move by Maloof.
It's a beautiful move by Maloof, but then it ends up in a turnover once again. And we've seen a bunch of turnovers by Towson offensively in this early going. And you can't give up possessions to Cornell like that and expect to come out with a win.
Especially when they've struggled as much as they have at the faceoff X. 0 for 4 for the Tigers so far today.
And just finishing up our point at Cornell, Lax Reference sent us a message. Cornell minus 42 possession margin last year, plus 10 against Albany in the first game, plus 32 in 2018. So last year certainly an anomaly for them.
Shot goes here for Cornell. It's Fletcher. Both goals so far for the Big Red.
And the goal very similar to his first one. Takes it down the left side. Draws that short. You just see the big outstretched length that Connor Fletcher has. He's working on O'Dare right there, but look at that lane he has to shoot as Brennan's hugging the pipe and he goes low on him. Bounces that one off the turf. Beautiful play by Connor Fletcher.
Fletcher, a guy who has had an interesting career at Cornell, put up a career best 32 points as a freshman back in 2017. Just 19 points a year ago, but a guy that continues to get considered a possible All-American. Takes a lot of attention on that Cornell midfield unit.
Yeah, we mentioned his length, 6'3", 230 pounds. He's got a nice big body. He doesn't look 230 pounds, but you ask any defender, he certainly plays like he's a 230-pound guy.
Here's Telesco, the senior from Ridgewood, New Jersey. Sends it behind to Michael Long. Fletcher again, this time down that far side alley. Dishes in front to Donville. That's gorgeous. The bounce shot goes as he tiptoes the crease. Cornell, its first lead.
And just a beautiful play by Connor Fletcher. He had gone down the left side the last 2 times and scored. This time he goes down the right side. And watch, they're going to play off him a little bit. He gets that pick there, but he gets space to operate. And then Donville is wide open right in front of the crease, right in front of Brennan. Take a look at that. Just does one deke and the low shot. Just a beautiful executed play by the Big Red.
Jonathan Donville, the 6th goal of the season. Coming off a 5-goal performance. That was a career high against the Great Danes. Ball is loose here off the face-off X, scooped up by, guess who, Jeff Teat. Seems to be everywhere in an unsettled situation here for the Big Red. Long. Still got a long pole on there off the face-off win, but Big Red electing to settle things down.
So they bring that second midi unit out here for the Big Red.
Good time to welcome our viewing audience on 11 Sports as that shot sails wide. Also live on Facebook to go along with LaxSportsNetwork.com and the FTF Next app. Big afternoon of lacrosse. The number 11 team in the country in Towson, Maryland, to take on this Tigers squad in desperate need of an early season win. Long. We're now near 20 seconds on the shot clock for the Big Red. Coyle. Piattelli looking for some space, somehow gets that one past Brennan. Back-to-back goals for the Big Red. They've got a 2-goal lead.
Cornell has 3 goals in the last minute 45. Everything just going right for him right this time. Even Piattelli, he's just throwing this at the goal. He's not even really shooting this. You take a look at this. He's got his back to the goal. He's just kind of dumping that in, hoping for the best. And it ends up going in. I mean, that's a rough goal to give up. But you notice the last 3 goals on Brennan have all come low. And that's what Cornell's picked out in the early going, is to take Brennan low, make him move. We mentioned he's coming off an injury. And they're really making him work for everything. A smart game plan so far for the Big Red in the first quarter.
Off the whistle, Towson finally gets a face-off win. The biggest cliche in sports, you can't score if you don't have the ball, and that has been a killer for the Tigers here so far today. Just no success at the face-off X.
Well, they've struggled in their first 2 games at the X. I mean, came in this game 16 of 50. That was with also working the freshman Shane Satori in last game.
Skip pass out top. Avanzado's shot never got through. Scooped up there by Stewart and kept alive. McLean rings one off a helmet. The backup will stay with Towson. Good race there to the end line to win it for Maloof, and he keeps the possession for the Tigers. Under 40 seconds to go on the possession clock. None of these shots have hit the cage. Good pass there to McLean, couldn't be handled, but keeps alive. Kind of forced in there, back to McLean, and it's another turnover for Towson.
Yeah, Brandon Salvatore is right there. I mean, you're passing that ball into a triple team full of traffic. Just not a lot of good decisions in the early going for the Towson offense.
And this Towson defense is being worked hard in this first quarter by Cornell. A lot of time on the field. Racing out of the box, it's Fletcher. Already 2 goals today. That shot blocked and scooped up. Good play by Andrew O'Dare.
But he throws it away.
Just simple plays plaguing the Tigers so far. And Coach Nadelin admitted he maybe underestimated how long it would take for this offense with some of the new pieces that they plugged in to gel. They also have a new offensive coordinator in Matt Musey. So he maybe thought that they would be a little bit better off early on, something that's very much a learning curve for Towson. But that there is just simple pitch and catch, make some plays.
Yeah, I mean, these mistakes they've had so far, unforced errors. I mean, it's not really a lot that Cornell's done to force some of these turnovers. I mean, these are a lot just bad passing. And you mentioned the chemistry thing. And yeah, it's a big deal, but this is simple. You do this every day in practice, just simple back and forth, you know, partner passing. It's not that difficult of a concept. I mean, and it feels like these guys are just trying to do a little bit too much too early. They just need to relax and let the game come to them. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but if they settle down, they'll be fine.
McLean all the way through, goes far side for an answer for Towson. Cornell just didn't pick him up. Brody McLean makes him pay.
That's one of the things we were just talking about. Don't force the issue. Look at McLean right here. He realizes he's got his defender on his hip. and nobody's looking to slide over to him. Not one guy was thinking about a slide right there. And McLean made the right play. That's what they need. Just simple. That's Lacrosse 101. Take a look, scan the defense. If they're going to give you an opening, take it. If they slide you, pull it back out. If they don't slide, take it to the cage.
Paul Rasimovich continues his success at the face-off X all the way through. Cornell right back at you. The face-off man with his first goal of the season.
So right off the face-off, and we talked about how dominant Rasimovich has been so far this season. Goes right down the alley. Once again, just like we talked about with McLean. Take it to the cage. If nobody slides to you, take the shot. I mean, that's, again, simple lacrosse. He went down, he kept going. Nobody's going to get on him. Take the shot.
So that earns Rasimovich a seat on the bench, a chance to rest. But Cornell still wins the faceoff as Angelo Petrakis came in and got the win. He wins it back, and Cornell a chance to clear. Dangerous pass. Good handle there by Joseph Bartolotto, and
I think we might have got a timeout. Did they get the timeout before he went out of bounds?
I think we did. Yeah, Cornell calling a timeout to preserve possession here with about a minute to go. Thank you, Tom. This Cornell squad has the unfortunate pleasure of playing Michael Sowers this year in the Ivy League, a guy who continues to make defenses just look defenseless against him. I mean, the 11 assists he had on Tuesday were just unbelievable.
And he did it in a variety of ways. It wasn't the same thing over and over. He was doing it in a couple different varieties. And I mean, just what a start to the season. I mean, just beautiful lacrosse. And you mentioned the assist. I mean, his passing is just exquisite to watch.
Coming out of the timeout, Cornell back on offense, up by 2. As Long, the freshman, works from X. Still plenty of time for the Big Red to operate. Long beats his man, gets in front, stopped by Brennan. But a push against Towson as Long landed in the crease will keep this ball with Cornell and a fresh 80 seconds. Great feed from Long, that one off the pipe for Piattelli. With 10 seconds to go, Brennan tried to clear, but it got knocked down. Ball's loose, still a chance for Cornell. Donville from way downtown, stopped by Brennan. A frenetic finish to this first quarter. Towson, though, able to keep it out and stay down by just 2 against the Big Red. Cornell showcasing the strength of this offense so far. A couple of goals for Connor Fletcher, the number 11 team in the country, up 2 on Towson. In Alex Woodall, you lose all that. There's a lot of holes to fill in, and now early in the season, it's just February. Towson's still trying to figure it all out.
Yeah, don't forget they lost Chad Peterson off their defense as well. I mean, just a lot of losses for this Towson team, but the thing is you got to be continually ready to reload every single year.
What a play by Kobe Smith, who gets a shot off. His ground ball play and his maneuvering through traffic there for a long pole was spectacular.
Yeah, you see the stick skills are there for Kobe Smith. He's very impressive. He's a defender, but as we said, he can also maybe remind you a lot of a guy like Brody Merrill, who's an excellent defender, but can also kind of be that long stick midi and get that ball up the field and create some offense.
Skip pass across, and Grant Maloof cashes in. Second goal of the season for Maloof.
And despite the lack of possession time, Towson only down by 2 here. We'll take a look at this again as Austin Stewart kind of sweeps across the top and gets it to Maloof at a wide open alley to rip that rocket from his left hand.
Austin Stewart, number 0, the sophomore from Arlington, Virginia, who gets the assist there. A transfer from Denver. Played just a couple of games for the Pioneers. Did score a goal during his time there, but makes the move to Towson. And now a chance to star on this first midfield unit for the Tigers.
He's going to be one of those guys as he continues to get more comfortable in this Towson system, is going to end up being a really productive player for the Tigers, especially when they get into CAA season after they've had a few games under their belt.
Mazza draws all sorts of attention, moves it back along to Stewart. Cornell defense, as we mentioned at the beginning, not afraid to pressure out. Maloof moves it along. Now Frommer. Maloof, step down, kicked wide. Maloof with 24 goals a season ago, 35 points, ranked 5th on the team.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that comes back this year and has to play a bigger role in this offense for the Tigers.
Mazza had it taken away, so Cornell a chance here early in the second quarter, their first offensive possession. It's been a quiet first 15 minutes or so for Jeff Teat of the Big Red. Haven't really needed him to do much.
But just the fact that you've got to keep an eye on him throughout the field opens it up for everybody else, and that's one of the bonuses of having a guy like Jeff Teat on your team.
Been a loud first 15 minutes for number 27, Connor Fletcher, in that red jersey. Here's another midfielder, Cooper Telesco, getting into the scoring act. Big Red back up 2.
Yeah, Cooper Telesco, at 6'1", 210-pound senior. You see Fletcher just dumps it off right up top. Then Telesco gets that defender on his hip and is able to open up those hands and take the shot.
There were a lot of goals that Cornell needed to replace with the graduation of Clark Peterson, who was Teat's #1 guy. Like, he was the guy that Jeff Teat was looking for. 2 guys that grew up playing with each other and kind of had that sixth sense about where each other were going to be on the field. So a lot of goals to replace in this midfield unit so far, showing that they have the horses to replace some of Peterson's production.
Yeah, they're looking good so far. Remember, Clark Peterson had 8 goals against Towson last year when this was #1 Towson versus #2 Cornell. But this midfield unit has done a really good job of coming in and stepping up and taking over those roles. Because you mentioned Teat and Peterson. I mean, I think they started playing together in 6th grade or something crazy like that up in Canada. You're right. They just knew where each other was everywhere on the field, and it was really easy for them to play a 2-man game.
Montgomery with an answer for the Tigers. The junior from New Jersey with his first goal of the season.
Despite the clunkiness of their offense so far, Towson's only down by 1 in this game. Nice move there on the D midi right up top for Montgomery. You see he takes that one and just rips one high to high.
Something interesting to watch here at the face-off X, Shane Santora, the freshman from Bayport, New York, has come in and found some success for the Tigers. Another face-off win here. Another shot by Mazza, but it's broken up, and he has to go back to settle things down.
Yeah, Gavin Adler took that one off his leg to prevent that. But we mentioned Santora came in the Mount St. Mary's game, had a little better success. He was 10 of 17 at the X.
Montgomery on the run, shoots wide.
But McNallen, we talked about, really is struggled in these first part of the season. 6 of 27 coming in this game, 1.0 for 5 in this game. It's starting to even out a little bit. It's now 8 to 5 advantage for Cornell.
This is Greg I dodging down the alley and scoring. Towson tying things up at 6.
Over the last about 5 minutes of game action, when you move back to about 2 minutes left in the first quarter, this Towson offense has really just settled down It is not trying to rush things on offense. And I comes in. Nobody comes over to pick him up, switches the stick into his left hand, gives himself a little bit of a different angle to shoot and scores.
Great guy, a transfer from Penn State who didn't have a ton of production last year with this Tigers team, but being asked to take on a little bit bigger role here this year, and he scores for his first goal of the season.
And now we see with the possessions, the difference with possession. Now Towson's starting to get some possessions and having some success at the faceoff X. And they're also having success in the score column over the last couple minutes as well.
Oh, and that's one of the biggest changes from last year is when you have Alex Woodall out there, he's winning 75% of the faceoffs. So you're getting 75% of the possessions right off the bat. A little more room for error as an offense when you're winning that many faceoffs and getting that many possessions.
Right, when you have a couple turnovers, it doesn't really make a difference because you know you're going to get a bunch of those possessions back in the end.
Here is a turnover. Big loose ball. Scooped up by the Big Red, but it's back on the carpet.
It's like a hockey scrum. Nobody wants to get that ball.
Ball is still loose. We've gone to the other end of midfield. Cornell finally scoops it up. A fresh 80 seconds for the Big Red. That was a ground ball scrum that went about 20 yards.
Yeah, that was a well-earned ground ball right there. It ended up going along.
Teat, Long, Piattelli. Everybody getting a touch for the Big Red offense. It's an offense that thrives on motion. Telesco, step down, shoots high.
Nice looking shot by Telesco, just a little bit off the mark.
Here's the freshman Michael Long, looking for his first career goal, and there it is. Save that ball for Michael Long, the freshman from Medham, New Jersey. The Del Barton product gives Cornell the lead back.
Just a beautiful move coming out from the X position. Great job. You saw that just at the last second, protecting his stick when it looked like the hit was going to come. Watch this. You see Salad's going to come in and try to take a swipe at it. Protects right there, protects the stick, and then takes it low on Brennan, which is where they've had the success of going low on Brennan. And this is a kid that they're really, really high on. Pete Milliman, he talked about he's struggled a little bit last week. It was deer in headlights at the time, but he did make some plays. He's one of those kids that the actual term was he was a layup recruit, is what Peter Milliman told us when we had a chance to talk to him. He said, I've been watching this kid for a long time.
Yeah, a five-star recruit who finished his high school career as Del Barton's all-time leader in points and assists, had 207 points in his high school career. A guy who they think is going to be very productive here at the college level.
Which is impressive because that's an elite school that's produced a lot of college lacrosse players. So the fact that he's got the record can show you something.
Big ground ball scrum, and it's Long who ends up with it. Unsettled situation. Long bounce shot saved by Brennan.
It's a good save by Shane Brennan. He went low on that one. He's been struggling on those low shots so far in the first half.
Donville gets the ground ball, and it's Piattelli keeping it alive for Cornell. At number 26 in red there, Brian Piattelli, the younger brother of John Piattelli, getting some action here. As Jeff Teat works on this near sideline. Still no points for Jeff Teat. Guy who is nearly 250 in his Cornell career. Telesco with 30 seconds on the shot clock, and now it's Teat. Little two-man game for the Big Red. Down to the doorstep, and Long cashes in. Beautiful feed from Jeff Teat, and Michael Long has his second in a row.
Well, we mentioned the field vision of Jeff Teat. This is exactly what we're talking about. Just gets that little bit of a chip from Fletcher against Smith, which opens up that pass, and Long is there on the backside. to receive the play. Just a great play by Jeff Teat. And you saw Long just kind of snuck by his defender just a little bit and got him on the side so he could receive that pass and get an open look at the goal. So back-to-back goals by Michael Long.
New Jersey Player of the Year for U.S. Lacrosse Magazine, Michael Long. The face-off X. Once again, Angelo Petrakis in there for Cornell, and he gets a win. And Jeff Teat goes back to work. Billy Coyle taking it all the way behind. He's got the short stick matchup. Tries to turn the corner. Skip pass out top. That one off the post.
Yeah, Lombardi had a beautiful opportunity right there and just a couple centimeters off from grabbing that goal.
And because that ball went off the pipe, it's a fresh 80 seconds. And so in the first 20 seconds of the shot clock, Cornell can go back over midfield. So that is why that was not an over and back call. The Big Red able to keep possession here, and still 65 seconds on the shot clock. One of the tweaks in the rules entering last season with the new 80-second shot clock in NCAA lacrosse. Teat skips it across to Piattelli. Backs down his man. Long. Looking for 3 in a row. There it is. Have yourself a day, Michael Long. A natural hat trick for the freshman.
And a natural hat trick in 3 minutes and 1 second of actual time in this game. So watch this again. He's got his defender out of position. Made sure his defender went one way. He went the opposite way. See right there, his defender bit. Gets upfield, gets enough upfield, takes a little wraparound shot around Brennan. 3 straight goals.
Michael Long giving Cornell a 3-goal lead. Towson wants to take a timeout, talk things over just over midway through this second quarter. Good time to remind you that FTF is your home for college rugby. Coming up February 22nd, we've got coverage of the College Rugby Association Game of the Week. It continues with a matchup between Texas and Texas A&M. Make sure to catch all the action 5 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Mountain Time on 11 Sports. You can also catch up on all the College Rugby Association's action every Tuesday night with This Week in College Rugby. So let's take a look at Michael Long. This natural hat trick here in the second quarter. Entered the game with no goals in his Cornell career, and in 3 minutes, he's got 3 of them.
And he looks a lot more relaxed in this game than he did last week against Albany. That comes with the experience. He got the butterflies out. That was his first goal coming from behind X. This time, watch, he's going to sneak on the doorstep on the opposite side, get the pass from Jeff Teat, gets that low bouncer, and then this one just moments ago, where he's going to play this little cat and mouse game with his defender, Joe Patty, and gets Patty moving upfield, takes him around the other way. 3 goals in 3 minutes and 1 second for the 5'10" freshman.
Coach Pete Milliman was telling us this week that he is 100% buying stock in Michael Long. He mentioned, hey, he didn't score in his collegiate debut last week against Albany, maybe struggled at times in that transition, but anybody who's trying to fit into an offense with guys like Jeff Teat and John Piattelli and Fletcher, Donville, Telesco, guys who have been established as part of this unit, and you're trying to slide in there as a freshman, it's not an easy transition, and you can see here today in the second quarter starting to feel out where he can fit in.
Yeah, and I think he's really starting to pick his spots, though, and you've seen him play behind X over these last couple minutes. You see he's really comfortable there. He feels good about it, and that's going to be very dangerous for opposing players this year if Long continues to develop. And this is a big leap that he's taken from the Albany game to the first half in this game. And again, he hasn't scratched the surface of his talent at the college level, so this is going to be scary for Cornell opponents.
You've got Long working for Max, and you got to worry about him, and then you got to worry about Jeff Teat on this near side wing, and then all the midfielders coming from the top of the box. That is a dynamic unit. Here is Teat. Little give and go with Donville off the pipe. And a crease violation on Donville. He'd like to have that shot back.
Yeah, Donville had great position, just got too far inside. And Towson needs a good possession on offense to stop the bleeding here as Cornell's ripped off the last 3 after Towson was able to tie it up at 6.
Good pressure in the ride from the Big Red, but Towson able to get it over midfield. Now a chance to get the offensive personnel on. Check the pressure from Cornell here. Nothing easy for the Tigers. Ryan Swain, the sophomore, brings it into the box, part of the second midfield unit, along with Greg I and Tim Montgomery. Swain with a step. His pass knocked down. And scooped up by the Big Red.
Yeah, Dom Doria got his stick on that one.
And
was able to get the
down.
turnover, and our first flag of the game is a big hit on the back end.
That's a frustration play for the Tigers. So a free possession here for Cornell. Chance to get a shot off knowing that you've got the man-up opportunity coming. Is J.J. Lombardi all the way around the back of the cage. Likes the short stick matchup, tries to feed across. That trickles into the crease and scooped up by Andrew O'Dare, but it triggers our first penalty of the afternoon.
Yeah, Lombardi tried to force that one in a little bit too much. So we got a slash on the back end. And it looked like it was Luke Frommert.
Yeah.
So give Cornell an opportunity to go man up. They were 0 for 3 last week against Albany.
Man down unit for Towson has not been very good in the 0-2 start. Just 20% on the penalty kill. Opposing teams 4 for 5 on the man up against this Tigers defense. Pass out top. Brennan got a piece of it. Doesn't know where it is, but it's out of the crease.
That popped hard off of his foot.
Better to be lucky than good sometimes, and Towson gets a much-needed stop.
Well, I say that because he had that lower body injury, and he looked like he was limping a little bit earlier, so we got to keep an eye on how he's doing with those legs.
So the Tigers a chance to kill off the rest of this 1-minute penalty. Do have to get it over midfield here in the next 3 seconds. They do. And now, if you're James Avanzado, just got to keep it away. Unsettled opportunity here for Towson. Man down, but that ball ends up in the stick of Chase Erlin. It's about 5 seconds left on the man up for Cornell. So Towson just got to kill a couple more seconds. And then they will be back to even strength here late in the second quarter. And we are back to even strength as Austin Stewart brings it into the box. Stewart, skip pass out top. Avanzado, extra pass. That hit a Cornell defender and deflects wide. Stewart working against Sam Duggan, the senior short stick D-midi for Cornell. Great feed. McLean is stopped by Erlin.
It's a nice body save by Chase Erlin. He's needed that because he struggled a bit at times in this first half.
And Jeff Teat settles things down here as we're under 3 minutes to go in the first half. He takes a shot there from Kobe Smith. Coming up at halftime, we'll send you back into the LSN Broadcast Center. Get you ready for a big Saturday in college lacrosse. Also, catch you up on some of the highlights from this one. As Teat on the doorstep has his first goal of the afternoon. Second point of the day for the senior from Brampton, Ontario.
That's 4 straight goals for the Big Red as they extend their lead out. But see Donville over to Teat. You see Teat give that quick little fake. He gets Brennan to bite and then takes his shot. See right there, just that little bit of a shoulder shake, head fake, makes Brennan commit, and then he finds where the opening is, and he gets his goal.
It's a perfect example of how dynamic this Cornell offense can be, because Jeff Teat is the guy on the offense that you can't miss. You can't let him go alone. However, with what they've done so far in this first half, you have to take some of the attention off of him, because guys like Donville and Fletcher and Telesco and Long have shown you that you have to respect what they do.
Almost just tiptoed the midfield line right there. Great job by Liccardi to get out of trouble there. But you're right. I mean, there's just been so many guys on this offense that have produced, and at some point, you're going to leave Teat open because you're going to have to. But then he's going to do things like that, and he's going to get those easy goals.
Billy Coyle shoots wide, but the backup there for Michael Long. Freshman with 3 goals in this second quarter. Largest lead of the day for the Big Red, the 11th ranked team in the country. Lombardi's shot is stopped, almost comes right back to him.
Yeah, Lombardi's been looking for that the last few times he's been on the field and had the ball.
Another big ground ball scrum, and it's won by Jeff Teat. Guy whose stick is just always around the ball, and the superstar attackman comes up with a big GB, and Cornell can hold for the final shot of the quarter if they'd like.
Yeah, expect Cornell to be methodical here. They're not going to rush anything because they've got the time on their side. Towson doesn't look like they're going to press out a little bit. They're going to allow Cornell the perimeter pass here for a little bit.
I'd be surprised if the ball doesn't end up in Teat's stick with around 20 seconds to go.
Yeah, you absolutely want to let Jeff Teat create. Giving him an opportunity to create some offense, take a shot, but also to get a rebound and a reset in case you miss it.
14 seconds left to go in the half. Cornell looking to extend this lead.
That's an excellent play defensively by Kobe Smith.
Jumped the passing lane, and Teat couldn't handle it. 5 seconds left. Kobe Smith's got to send it. Goes way wide, but it brings us to the end of this first half. Actually, still a second to go. Chase Erlin just gonna let it go. He's content with what this Big Red squad did in the first 30 minutes. 11th ranked team in the country, flexing their muscles.
Of the first half to go up 10-6.
That 4-goal run leading us to the score that we have now, the Big Red with a 4-goal lead entering this second half. Travis Eldridge and Brendan McDaniels back with you on Lax Sports Network. And a face-off win here for the Tigers. Another different face-off guy is Joey Chestnut. Number 41 for Towson got the win, but a turnover there in trying to get possession, so it gives it back to Cornell.
Yeah, the good and the bad of that possession. Joey Chestnut comes in, the junior midi takes the face-off, gets the win, but then they throw the ball away. It's now 10 turnovers for Towson in just a half plus 20 seconds.
Wonder how many hot dogs this Joey Chestnut can eat in a...
See, I was refraining from making the Joey Chestnut hot dog reference.
He has to get it all the time as Jeff Teat goes back to work for the Big Red.
Yeah, it's one of those. It could be worse, but yeah, I'm sure he gets as many Nathan's hot dogs as he wants.
Teat swims past his guy, now draws a double. And Cornell can't keep it across the mid-line, so it's a over and back. It's a turnover to give it to Towson. Tigers, you get the feeling, could use some early offense to start this second half, trying to get back in this game. They've had spurts, went on a nice little run to tie things up at 6 in that second quarter, but Cornell finishing the quarter strong.
Well, and even if they don't necessarily need a goal here, but they need a good, solid offensive possession where they're able to move the ball and get a quality shot opportunity.
It's Avanzato, the Maryland transfer. Feeds back out top to Frommert. Now Maloof. He had a goal in the first half. Right hand. Ball stays with Towson on the backup. Maloof, traditionally a lefty.
One of the things we were surprised about is Chase Erlin took 7 shots, only made 1 save in the first half. So for Towson, you know if you get a quality shot, you've got a good chance of scoring today.
Tim Montgomery, another guy who scored in that first half. Ball swings over to Maloof. There is Erlin with a stop.
But an excellent save by Chase Erlin.
And a good hustle play by Cornell. Gavin Adler getting out there to the end line to get the backup and the Big Red a possession. Winning the race to the end line to win possession for the Big Red. Joseph Bartolotto gets it to Michael Long. A freshman coming off that terrific first half. The first 3 goals of his collegiate career.
Good clear right there because Mo Salah was chopping some wood on that ride. And finally got it down to Long.
Here's John Piattelli. J.J. Lombardi. Cornell offense has been super patient so far in this game. You can tell it's full of a bunch of juniors and seniors. Here's the sophomore from Malvern, Pennsylvania, Billy Coyle. Gets his man to fall down. Pretty feed, back to Teat, just too high.
Yeah, Teat tried that riser and just took that a little bit too high, but you mentioned it, Jeff Teat is the one that sets the tone in this Cornell team, and he is so patient with the ball. You never really see him ever rush anything, and these guys take that cue from him.
Piattelli draws the double, moves it along. Lombardi, a shot and a score. The sophomore from Rochester, New York, his first goal of the game, 4th of the season, 5 straight for the Big Red.
It's a nice low-to-low shot by J.J. Lombardi. Comes from a great lacrosse family in Rochester. His brother Billy played at Penn State. Gets that low shot right there. His brother's now coaching at the Aquinas Institute in Rochester. And I know their head coach, Patty Olbrich, is watching us right now. He's upset because Billy, the older brother, went to Aquinas. JJ decided to go to prep school, so Patty never got a chance to coach him.
JJ going to the Salisbury School up in New England. And another face-off win here for Cornell. It was a spot they were dominant in the first quarter. Towson made it a little bit more interesting in the second. One of the reasons the Tigers were able to go on that run, but now a couple of early possessions for the Big Red off of face-off victories here to start the second half.
You see 5 straight goals by Cornell after it was 6-6.
Towson hasn't scored since around the 12-minute mark of the second quarter.
You see Fletcher, and this is what I love about Fletcher in the offense. They're patient, but they continue to attack. There's no let up in this offense.
Here's Teat working against the fellow All-American in Kobe Smith. Downhill dodge there for Fletcher. Shoots wide. He had 3 points in that first half, a couple of goals and an assist.
Well, they're giving him space. He's getting that advantageous shorty matchup, and they're giving him space to operate.
Here's Fletcher again. Bounce shot wide. Possession stays here for Cornell. About 20 seconds on the shot clock. Piattelli around the X and scores. Just enough space again. And his second goal, it's 6 in a row for Cornell.
We're gonna have to dub that the Piattelli dump because that's the second time he's done that in this game. Take a look at this again. Piattelli comes from behind X and just kind of just tosses it over his shoulder. It's not one of those things that you see on those lacrosse highlight videos where they try to teach you proper techniques on shooting, but he's 2 for 2 on that particular shot.
He beats Regan McNemar there on the on that play, and Cornell back at the faceoff X. Had an early beat on that ground ball, but it's scooped up by Towson. Man, do they need an offensive set here.
This is Brandon Hunt. He's the one that's in for Jake McLean.
You're just joining us here for the second half. Jake McLean, the senior defensive midfielder for the Tigers, out 4 to 6 weeks with an upper body injury. We found out about that just prior to face-off at Johnny Unitas Stadium. Guy who also played some offensive midfield last year for Towson, so a big guy to lose for the Tigers for this portion of the season, especially when you're also trying to replace an All-American defensive midfielder in Zach Goodrich, who has graduated. Luke Frommert shoots high.
We mentioned a moment ago having those quality offensive possessions, but getting some shots on goal.
Swain down the alley, squeezes one past Erlin. The sophomore with an answer.
And they get that off the second opportunity, off the first miss. And Swain, you see him, he was locked and loaded and ready to go. He was just waiting to beat his defender. And once he got his defender on his hip, he was ready to go. And nobody on that half of the field ready to slide over for Cornell. Everybody was on the opposite side. So a beautiful lane for Swain to go through and get that score.
7th different goal scorer for the Tigers so far today. Gets it back to a 5-goal game. And Towson went early on that face-off. It was the freshman Shane Santora back in there for that draw. Gives it back to Cornell. Look at this Big Red offense, ranked 5th in the country last year, averaging over 14 goals per game. And we mentioned it, that was while struggling at times at the face-off X. So you have some success at the X like they're having today, and the sky is the limit for this offense.
Absolutely, and this is where you're going to get into situations with Cornell where they're just going to end up being able to blow teams out just because they're going to get those extra possessions, and they're just going to be able to outscore you.
From downtown, it's Piattelli completing the hat trick. John Piattelli, his 2nd straight game with a hat trick, the junior from Wrentham, Massachusetts.
And this is the shots that we're normally used to Piattelli. Off the feet from Donovan. Look at that, just that beautiful lane to shoot. And he was ready, he had that stick ready in the shooting position as the ball's coming in. A nice simple catch and shoot for him. Beautiful play by Piattelli.
Piattelli led Cornell last year with 45 goals. He was 2nd on the team with 64 points. And another face-off win for the Big Red. Good scoop there by Danny Bacafola, the freshman long stick midfielder, as Jeff Teat goes high to keep possession. Pass across, extra pass to Long. One more! Oh, what pretty passing from Cornell. The 4th goal of the game for John Piattelli.
And that's the one that's going on the Lacrosse fundamentals tape right there. Beautiful execution by the Big Red. Piattelli, back-to-back goals. Take a look at this again. It's beautiful passing down low. Long had the shot. Opted for Piattelli, who had a better one on the backside. Unselfish play, beautiful by Cornell.
Towson wants to talk things over as the Big Red are on fire offensively. The Tigers calling a timeout. Coming up next weekend here on LSN, our CAA Game of the Week coverage moves to UMass. The Minutemen playing host to the number 3 team in the country, Yale. The Bulldogs have appeared, of course, in the last 2 national championship games, won the title in 2018 before falling to Virginia last season. The Minutemen coming in 1-1 on the year with that win last Saturday over 12th-ranked Ohio State. Yale versus UMass. It's our CAA Game of the Week, Saturday, February 29th, 1 p.m. Eastern, on Lax Sports Network. So John Piattelli is on fire, taking a look at what he's done just this quarter. We saw the goal in the first half where he just had a sliver of space. This one looked very similar, and then showing some more versatility in his game.
Yeah, the first one, the Piattelli dump. And then now off the feed from Donville. Just look at that spacing that he has for a nice mid-range shot. And then this time, he's going to come streaking down to the goal, beats his defender, goes one-on-one against Brennan, and he's going to win that matchup. 4 goals in the game, 3 in this quarter by Piattelli.
And you have to love the unselfishness about this offense on that last possession, because you got Sam Duggan, the defensive midfielder, who had a shot that was probably a really good shot. He passes along. Michael Long, the freshman, has a shot, but decides, oh, I've got a wide open guy on the doorstep. I'm going to make it even better, and Piattelli finishes. I think that's a trickle down from Jeff Teat, who at sometimes almost to a fault is so deflective and wants to get so many more guys involved that we were talking to Peter Milliman. He says, sometimes I have to encourage Teat, hey, sometimes you do have to take over when we need you to.
Yeah, we love that you're unselfish, but sometimes we need you to be selfish. But this is just a team, like we mentioned before, they take their cues from Jeff Teat. He's unselfish. He always looks for the extra pass, looks for who's got the better matchup. And that time, you saw 3 different guys decide somebody else has got a better matchup. I'm going to give them the opportunity. And then it finished with Piattelli, who had the best opportunity out of all of them and got the goal.
Here's Matt Licciardi, gets a shot off. It's wide. Teat there for the backup. Quickly on the restart, Teat stopped by Brennan. The shot clock reset. Loose ball on the end line. A loose ball push will give it to the Tigers.
This has been a pretty clean game so far. We've had 1 penalty, very few push calls in this game. Great job by both teams. They're really playing some good, solid lacrosse.
Low pass handled nicely by O'Dare. Chance to get the offense on, but Kobe Smith just took his eye off of it. McLean tracking it down in the corner. Scooped up by Brandon Salvatore, and Cornell back the other way. Unsettled situation for the Big Red. Piattelli passes across. Teat stopped by Brennan. Rebound is kicked wide, and a crease violation there will give it back to Cornell. Excuse me, to Towson.
Harrison Bardwell was the one that tried to take that rebound slap shot, hockey style, and got popped down low.
Bardwell with 0 career goals, the junior from Wilton, Connecticut. So he had big wide eyes when he saw that net.
You can't blame him for that. You see the shots on goal so far. Huge advantage for the Big Red, and you're starting to see that in the scoreboard.
Quiet second half so far from Brody McLean, a guy who expected to take on more of an offensive load this year as he feeds, and Avanzato finishes. Pretty play there for Towson to get back on the score sheet.
So that broke a streak of 8 of the last 9 goals scored by Cornell. So here's McLean looking for some help. Avanzato, the transfer from Maryland, gets the opportunity and has that opening right in the middle lane.
Avanzato, a guy who was a very highly regarded recruit coming out of high school, a top 50 overall recruit in the class of 2017. 2018, scored his first career goal for Maryland, but suffered a season-ending injury on that same play. Missed the rest of the year, eventually transferring here to Towson and getting a chance now as a sophomore to play for the Tigers.
Yeah, to be really a season and a half when he was healthy, only 3 games played, and it's tough to crack that lineup. I mean, even when you're a 5-star recruit, it's still tough to get into that Cornell line, or that Maryland lineup.
Good kick save there by Erlin to keep it out.
Yeah, for Erlin, that's only his 3rd save of the afternoon.
He hasn't needed to make a whole lot.
Yeah, he really hasn't seen a lot of shots.
Jonathan Donville getting it to a racing Connor Fletcher. Bodies down the alley, shoots high and wide. Beat up by the long stick midfielder, Mo Silla. Here's Long. 3 goals in that second quarter. Shoots, and it's off the side of the net. Long pass up ahead to Garrett Zangalia. Tracks it down. Gets himself out of trouble.
Yeah, he was very close to touching that sideline. The Cornell players thought he was out. But yeah, the official right there, keep an eye on things.
Tigers settle things down.
This is really where you need to see Towson. If they want to remain in this game, they got to close the gap. They got to at least close this within 4, preferably 3.
Aloof from way downtown.
Going into the fourth quarter if they want to have a chance to win this. Remember, no lead in lacrosse is insurmountable. You never know what's going to happen.
The face-off disparity has been the real killer if you're trying to come back for the Tigers. 16-9 advantage for the Big Red at that spot. Stewart dances, sends it across. McLean, bouncer too high.
But keep in mind, Cornell won the first 5, so since then it's been 11-9. So it's been mostly even since that initial run by the Big Red.
Bromert with 20 seconds of the shot clock. McLean can't handle it. And Bartolotto scoops up the ground ball.
This is the thing, you can't have empty possessions if you're Towson. You at least have to get a shot or 2 on goal every single possession to give yourself an opportunity.
Cooper Telesco showing off that 6'1", 215 frame. Big body to get it over midfield. This Big Red team looking to stay perfect against Towson. 3-0 all time, including the meeting last year when the Tigers were #1 in the country, coming off that big win over Loyola, who was then #1 in the country. So Towson took over the top spot, but the Crown Classic in Charlotte, North Carolina, Cornell handing the Tigers their first loss of the season.
That Crown Classic this year is going to be a great one. Penn State Cornell. It's the marquee matchup later in the day on that Sunday, March 8th.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic as that ground ball scooped up by Coyle. Gets out of some traffic. And I believe we have a clock issue because the shot clock reset when it wasn't supposed to.
Yeah, how about that game in 2 weeks? Penn State should remain #1. Cornell could move into the top 10.
Oh, Penn State's got a big game here tomorrow. The Nittany Lions taking on Yale, a matchup of the #1 and #3 teams in the latest media poll. A rematch of last year's Final Four game where the Bulldogs just dump trucked the Nittany Lions in the first half on their way to a win and a spot back in the national championship game. Be very interested to see Penn State's mentality going into that game, knowing what happened on the biggest stage in the sport. How do you come out? Are you a little too eager, or can you settle things down and take care of business?
Well, the advantage for Penn State, they have so many veterans on that team. They brought a lot back from that team that played in that national semifinal, and I mean, there's so much firepower in there. I mean, you run down the list, and you don't want to leave anybody off. I mean, you get Ahmet, O'Keefe. I mean, the list just keeps going and going and going as you go down the list of those guys for Penn State that can be elite goal scorers.
Yeah, you got guys like Jack Kelly, are kind of unsung heroes, would be stars elsewhere, but because you're playing with 2 of the most dynamic talents in the sport at the moment in Ahmet and O'Keefe, you kind of fall in the 3rd or 4th fiddle. So we're back to 37 seconds. We got the shot clock figured out, and Cornell keeps possession up by 6 here late in the 3rd quarter. Cooper Telesco, bodied up by Kobe Smith, who now gets back on Jeff Teat.
Yeah, it's good help defense by Kobe Smith right there.
Michael Long, the freshman, surveying. 8 seconds left on the shot clock. Skip pass out top. Donville one more. On the doorstep, it's Fletcher. A hat trick for Connor, the senior from Newtown, Pennsylvania.
And that all comes off, keep in mind, that came off of a turnover on the other end by Towson. And this long possession ends in a goal for Cornell. So you see Long, goal line extended to Donville, and then Fletcher. takes that one right off of his left leg. We sound like a broken record, but just really sharp passing by the Big Red offense leads to getting it to the open guy in a goal.
And great patience, too, because late in the shot clock, you're looking at 6-7 seconds when Donville gets that ball. How many players who maybe don't have the experience of Jonathan Donville just shoot that because you're worried about getting a shot off? Instead, he realizes he's got enough time to make the extra pass and get an even better shot.
Yeah, there's no panic in this offense, and that's what one of the most impressive things for Cornell is we mentioned that this is a team, these guys are older, they've got the experience, but they're also working the younger guys like Michael Long in his offense, and Michael Long is playing a crucial position on this offense. And you saw he touched the ball in that possession with under 10 seconds, but there's no panic app, so they're as cool as can be with the shot clock running down.
Here is Long again. Cornell plenty of time on the shot clock. Late in the third quarter, Travis Eldridge, Brendan McDaniels with you here on LSN. That shot kicked away by Brennan. A fresh 80 seconds for Cornell and a chance to essentially hold for one shot here at the end of the third quarter. The 11th ranked team in the country in control against the home Tigers. Cornell looking to get to 2-0 on the season after that season opening win over UAlbany, hanging 19 goals on the Great Danes last week. This offense has looked every bit as good today. Crisp passing.
I mean, you keep an eye on it. I mean, they're on pace to score 20 in this game. I mean, this is an impressive offense.
Joe Wolf taking his time here. Trying to kill the clock, get one more good look at this.
And just like at the end of the second quarter, Towson not coming out to challenge him at all and allowing for the last shot. Now in the second quarter, they were able to force a turnover. Kobe Smith forced a turnover with 5 seconds left. But now, I mean, this is a perfect scenario for Cornell. You have possession, you have a big lead. You're gonna have all the momentum going into the fourth quarter on the road.
Here's Jeff Teat with 9. Kobe Smith takes it away. One All-American taking it away from another.
Same thing, 5 seconds to go. Kobe Smith forces the turnover.
He's not an All-American for nothing. Kobe Smith is a terrific defenseman, making a nice play there, but just too much Cornell in the third quarter. Back in Towson, Maryland for our CAA Game of the Week. The 11th ranked Cornell Big Red in control against the home Towson Tigers as we get ready for the start of the fourth quarter. Travis Eldridge and Brendan McDaniels back with you. Face-off X, a spot that Cornell dominated to start. Kind of evened out for a little bit, and the Big Red continuing to keep that edge here to start the final frame. Another face-off win there as Angelo Petrakis has come in and been a nice spark plug for the Big Red. A give and go there for Donville. He loses it. A big hit, though. We've got a loose ball push, which will keep it with Cornell. Towson had gotten possession there.
Yeah, Petrakis 6 of 10 for faceoffs coming into this game, so he's already had some success in that first game against Albany. And faceoffs, we mentioned this was a struggle for Cornell last year. This is part of the reason why they didn't get to the NCAA tournament and they didn't fulfill their season expectations. As we mentioned, that they were as high as number 2 in the polls last year. People expected them.
Let's go. Backhand finish. He went all the way around the defense and scores.
Let's take a look at Telesco. Just kind of does a roundabout, just looking for where there's open turf and just keeps going until he gets to the goal and slides that backhander in. This is something we've seen from, they've got so many goal scorers and guys that can score in so many different ways. And when you're a goaltender, you see a guy come into the lane like that, last thing you think is he's going to do a little backhand shovel like that. And that's very hard for a goalie to try to defend.
And Jack McNallen wins the faceoff there forward to himself for the Tigers, but then tries to bat it across and goes out of bounds. So another turnover gives it back to Cornell. This Big Red offense showing you how potent it can be. Think about Cooper Telesco, career high 4 goals last week against Albany, adds 2 more here so far today. He had 12 goals all of last season. He's already half of that in just 2 games. Lombardi, now T. Piattelli's got a 4-pack of goals today, including 3 in that 3rd quarter. He wants more, shoots high.
Yeah, I believe it was a crease violation.
Yep. You're just joining us here at the start of the 4th quarter. Shane Brennan, the starting goalie for the Tigers. Missed the first couple of games with an injury, so Tyler Canto, who was the starter for all of last year, started those first couple of games. He struggled, and so Shane Brennan coming back from that injury today. Coach Nadelin told us this week it was going to be Brennan who started the season as the main guy, but that injury keeping him out of the first couple of games. Maloof shoots one high.
We've seen Brennan limp a little bit during this game, so I think the injury is still bothering him a little bit, but give the credit to the Cornell offense. They have done such a great job of keeping it fresh on the guys that are taking the shots, the guys that are feeding, the type of shots they're doing. They're doing alley dodges. They're coming from back behind X, off-ball cuts. I mean, really just a dynamic offense that has scored in so many different ways.
Easy save there for Erlin. Almost a really pretty play by Duggan to move that one along. But instead, it's Austin Stewart who splits 2 Cornell players. But the long stick midfielder, Bartolotto, coming up with the caused turnover. Bartolotto, a guy that Coach Millman believes has really played to an even higher level than Cornell expected when they brought him in. He's really stepped up his game. They love him at the long stick midfield position.
Yeah, he's really, as you mentioned, he's exceeded every expectation that they possibly could have had for him. And when you get guys like that exceed your own expectations, like as coaches, you don't always tell kids what you expect, but internally, you kind of say, okay, this is where this kid's ceiling is. And if we can get to that ceiling, this kid's going to be a really good player. But then when they exceed that ceiling that you have for them, it ends up being gravy. And he's just absolutely done a great job of doing everything he's been asked for and more.
Telesco on the run. And Teat keep possession here for Cornell. Jeff Teat, a goal and an assist so far today. Honestly, he hasn't had to do a whole lot. Being guarded by the fellow All-American and Kobe Smith. Pretty feed there for Teat. Couldn't be handled by Donville. Ground ball scooped up by Towson. This is a Tigers team that you get the feeling has a lot of things they're still trying to figure out. You mentioned all that this team lost from last year. Your top 2 scorers and Brendan Sunday and Timmy Monahan. One of the best face-off men in the entire country in Alex Woodall. And then the best midfielder in the entire country, the short stick defensive midfielder, Zach Goodrich.
Yeah, I mean, just a lot to go. And sometimes you lose a lot on defense, sometimes you lose a lot on offense. They just lost a lot overall.
That one stopped again by Erlin.
But having said all that, I mean, this is still this Towson team. They've got a good core. This is going to be a good team once they get into CAA play. And they're playing a tough schedule. Towson's got 7 teams right now ranked in the top 20. They've got 3 more receiving votes. That's 10 teams on their schedule that are at least receiving votes as one of the best teams nationally. That's a really hard schedule, and that's going to pay off when they get into the Colonial Athletic Association conference, because they're going to be battle-tested with this Cornell team, Georgetown, Duke, and everybody else that they've got on their schedule coming up.
Coyle stripped away. Ball comes back out toward midfield. Lombardi chases it down. Tangled up with Silla. Coyle tracks it down somehow. Must have said Towson had gotten a piece of that to go back over the midfield stripe. Just 20 seconds left of the shot clock for Jeff Teat. Have to hurry to bring it in. Michael Long dodges. 9 seconds left. Coyle, great catch by Long. The freshman's got 4. What a afternoon for the freshman Michael Long. 4 goals, his first 4 goals of his collegiate career, and he has a bright, bright future ahead of him.
Well, his coach said he was a bit in deer in headlights at times last week against Albany. He can erase any deer in headlights during this game against Towson, as he's got 4 goals and has really just had an outstanding game.
You're talking about Towson's schedule coming up. They get a really good test again midweek as they take on Loyola on Wednesday. Having to travel, making that quick trip to Mount Ridley. Cornell is right back at it here in Baltimore on Sunday. They take on High Point. Coach Milliman saying, look, we needed quality games. We felt like Towson and High Point would be good tests for us. They were hoping would help the RPI as they look ahead to the NCAA tournament and trying to make the tournament at the end of the year. And sometimes you just can't get teams to travel to upstate New York midweek. So we're going to try to get as many games as we can. And High Point was willing to come up to Baltimore. So 2 games in 3 days for this Cornell team this weekend.
Well, and Coach Milliman said, he said High Point was going to be in the area. We were going to be in the area. Said, hey, we'll did a crease violation on Long right there. But,
yeah,
you know, as you said, it just kind of worked out that way. But when you schedule, and he's absolutely right, he goes, I can play the teams in upstate New York, but what is he getting out of that? No offense to the teams up there, but, I mean, you look at, outside of Syracuse, you're looking at Canisius, which is in the MAC, which is not really at their level. St. Bonaventure's a second-year program. They still have not won a Division I game yet. I mean, that's not a game. I mean, they had them last year, but that's not a game that is going to help you come NCAA tournament time. You know, you've got Marist, which is not going to help you because they're in the lower division. A team like High Point will help you. A team like Towson will help you.
One team you didn't mention is Hobart. Keep an eye on the Statesmen. That game between Cornell and Hobart coming up later on this season, as that shot sails wide, maybe like a 25-22 game. Hobart, if you haven't seen them play, they can hang some numbers.
Hobart's always been known to put some goals on the board, and this year's no different.
Putting up 20-plus goals earlier this season already. Is Austin Stewart working with it, under 20 seconds of the shot clock for the Tigers. Avanzado, just a little crease of space there down the alley. He's got his 2nd goal of the afternoon.
You mentioned Avanzado, that is his 2nd. His first Tiger with 2 today. There's Stewart with the feed, and the only thing that's concerning for Cornell in this game is that Chase Erlin really hasn't looked sharp. He's given up now 9 goals on 14 shots. But other than that, every other piece of this Cornell team has looked really good. And I'm only saying that this is an off game for Chase Erlin. This is not routine for him.
No.
So
we've got a big hit. Player down for Cornell off of the faceoff. It is the starting faceoff man.
Hirasamovich coming right off.
Asimovic struggled. They actually had a great start to this game after winning 70% last week against Albany, going 12-17 in the primary faceoff man. Really his entire Cornell career, as you see that shot taken up high. Cornell gets possession off of it. We're under 7 minutes to go in this one. All Cornell.
These last couple minutes, look for some brand new middies. You got a fresh set of middies out there right now for the Big Red, because they are playing again on Sunday afternoon, so they got a short turnaround.
This is Brian Piattelli. Back to Long. Here's Wolf. dances toward the middle, looking to get that left hand free. John Piattelli, the older brother of Brian. You got both Piatellis out there. As we're down to 10 seconds of the shot clock for Cornell. Long passes back out top. Licciardi's shot saved. Nice stop there by Brennan. His 12th save of the afternoon. At this point for Towson, what offensively do you keep working on? Chances are coming back from 8 goals down in 5.5 minutes is probably not in the cards.
Well, when we talked to Sean Nadelin, and he mentioned that the chemistry's not there. They've got a new offensive coordinator. They've got a lot of new parts on offense. Brendan Sunday's not there to quarterback this. So again, this is 5+ minutes of getting reps in. Move the ball around, get into your offensive sets, just continue to get used to each other, because still they're only 3 games in, and they didn't have everybody ready to go during fall ball. They didn't have everybody ready to go in preseason, so due to injuries. So this is still a team that's still trying to figure out how they fit best. And now the good thing is that with the new offensive coordinator, they've kept the terminology pretty much the same. So these guys are not learning new terminology in a new offense, but they're continually learning how to work with each other.
CAA Game of the Week slate continues tomorrow. We head up I-95 to Long Island. Hofstra hosting Villanova, the Pride 2-0, while the Wildcats coming off that big win over number 4 Maryland earlier this week. Face off for this one set for 2 p.m. Eastern Time. It's tomorrow. Lax Sports Network, your home for CAA lacrosse. Should be a really interesting one. If you like watching Jeff Teat play, you're going to really like watching Ryan Tierney play as well for the Pride. He was been on fire coming off an 8-point performance against Michigan last weekend.
Yeah, another guy you're going to have to keep an eye on in the CAA. Just an elite offensive talent.
Really elite offensive talent all over the country this year. Nice little move here for Towson as they just get it over midfield in time to beat the 20-second clock. We've got a new goalie for Cornell. Kalen Bolin stepping in for Chase Irwin. That one hit a man in front. It was Brandon Salvatore who wore it. But around the midfield stripe, Austin Stewart keeps it alive for Towson. And a takeaway there. Salvatore gets it back. So he wears the shot, and then he comes up with the ground ball. Nice possession for Brandon Salvatore, the senior.
Yeah, Salvatore's going to be one of those guys that they're going to rely on throughout the season to really help anchor that defense. We mentioned that they did have some defensive struggles last year. So far this year, they're off to a great start. They played well defensively against Albany. They played well defensively against Towson here today.
I thought it was really interesting, Coach Milliman mentioning to us about how he felt like they, as a team, let the expectations of last year get the better of them. They were a team that you mentioned, they rose super high in the polls. People had sky-high expectations for the return of Jeff Teat in his junior year, Clark Peterson back. They were a team that was expected to compete for championship weekend, and while they had a great season, 10-5, made the Ivy League tournament, they fell short of what those expectations were, and so he said, you know, we kind of reset everything in the locker room. The expectations for us are still the same, but maybe a little chip on their shoulder as they enter this season.
Yeah, and he said at times it got to them last year. They let it get into their heads, and they thought too much about it. We mentioned this earlier in the game about Towson's offense. Overthink. As college players, you can't overthink the room. Like, you just got to go out, and you just have to play. And sometimes you just got to leave the emotions on the sideline and just say, we got to go out and play. We're not worried about how we're going to, beat this team by 10 goals or 15 goals or whatever. We just got to go out and win and play our game and just slow down and let the game come to us. And they didn't do that last year. And you mentioned, you look at the record, 10-5, you go, oh, that's a good season. But for them, it wasn't, because they didn't make the tournament. They didn't go to championship weekend. They didn't have all those things.
They got a flag down here as Frommer gets a shot off. Bolin coming up with a save.
And Milliman even said, I need to do a better job as a leader of this group to make sure that those expectations don't get out of control. You take a look at
slash, I
the last
believe,
flag
on Patrick Carey. Earning a discussion with
Jordan Stevens right there.
The assistant coach. Such a unique coaching staff for Cornell because you have Jordan Stevens and Connor Busick, both guys who are relatively recent grads of this Big Red program. Guys who play professionally, and Coach Milliman loves it. He said they're one of the strengths of this program. They're hungry, they recruit great, and who better to be able to recruit for this program than guys who just left it, as you get a man-up goal here for John Mazza. His second goal of the evening.
Yeah, we'll get back to that point in just a second after we take a look at this Mazza goal, as Towson has scored the last two, but this is on the man up. Some nice passing up top, and Mazza realizes, okay, nobody's going to slide over to me, so I'm going to rip this one low. But you're absolutely right with Jordan Stevens and Connor Busick. They played in the mid-teens of that last decade on some really, really good Cornell teams that were just loaded with talent. And then for them to come back and coach, and as Pierre Millen was saying, he goes, these were elite players, former professional players, and guys that were here have a vested interest in this school. So who's better to recruit than these guys right here? And you can see it, like the talent that Cornell's got over the last couple of years is a direct product of Stevens and Busick, because they believe in this program and they can talk about the history, because they were a big part of the history of this program.
Save there from Bolin on Kobe Smith, who was looking for his third goal of the season. The long stick for Towson, and Cornell can run this clock out here in the fourth quarter, up 17-10.
And this is a solid win for Cornell. It was tied 6-6 at one point, and then Cornell ripped off 6 straight goals, 8 of 9 goals at one point. It really took control of this game. Michael Long had a fantastic game. Piattelli was outstanding, both of those guys with 4 goals each. Jeff Teat was held in check, but that's the best part about this is you're going to look at Teat's stats and go, oh, he had an off game. It's not that he had an off game.
He didn't have to do anything.
He didn't have to do anything. And if you're Cornell,
that's great.
You now know that you can win lopsided games without Jeff Teat having to do a ton.
Well, and Cornell knows, and they experienced this at times in the last couple of years, people are going to shut Jeff Teat off. They're not going to let him get the ball. So if other guys can beat the defense, then Jeff Teat gets the ball more, and that is a recipe for success for this Cornell team. Big Red successful here today, putting the seal on a 17-10 win over the Tigers. The Big Red getting to 2-0 on the year. We'll be back to recap this one from Johnny Unitas Stadium on Lax Sports Network.